now being recorded. Take it away, Chris.
Cool. Before I do, speaking of jobs and all that, and I wouldn't normally do this, except we have a very interesting position that is with an agency, mid-level, similar to a Canopy size. I can't really go into the name, but this is a very high level position at a VP of engineering, professional services level. We figure this person will probably be working somewhere else. The job may be on Drupal Contractors. This is all just happening in the last few days. So in any case, if anybody hears anybody that, is at that level that might be interested in a change, we'd love to hear about that. And we're happy to, reward people for bringing us quality. And, we're always generous. I don't go in for this $500 stuff, because I know that really isn't super important to working developers. So in any case, we appreciate all help, as far as putting the word out there to try to help people find the resources that they need. Otherwise, I also want to make it a blanket apology. Amy June knows this. Sometimes I get confused, right? And so some of this talk, you may have seen a bit of it with the focus on sales and customers at Bad Camp, and it just happens to be scheduling that this talk is so close to that. We are going to be focusing on sort of a more holistic business picture than we did there, which was very more customer centric and sort of managing that reality. But, if there's any repeat slides, I apologize in advance. I think the beauty of this talk is that we had who can imagine how quickly, 45 minutes goes by. So there was 4 minutes for questions there. And, I think Mario from Media Current dominated most of them, which was nice. I mean, he was almost like a plant in the audience or something. So in any case, that's hopefully nice here. We'll try to, hopefully have enough time for some questions. I'm going to share my screen. I don't even know I have a Canopy website open, so it's not like.
It happens when you open up our Zoom, it'll auto refresh to Canopy. So we know that you opened up Zoom twice with us.
There you go. All right, let me see here. So does this look right? My presenter notes aren't over the screen, or let me know.
Looks good.
Oh, it's not. No, I need to do this here.
Yeah, it's not in presenter mode, but there are no presenter notes. Got that going for you.
I don't have any presenter notes. Just wing it. Right, cool. I am screen sharing. Cool. Welcome to Freelancing for Drupal, a how-to guide for starting and managing your business. I am Chris McGrath, as everyone has heard probably. I got started in Drupal around 2010. Prior to that, I've been working in the internet since 96, 7, something like that. I don't know, I'm too old now, I forget. It was really more like 95, but that was when it really started to get cooking. And I worked for various people, AT&T and digital strategy. I started my own firm then. I'm just like one of those opportunists. Somebody says they have, a lead source, but don't know how to fulfill it and deliver. I can help. So that's kind of how I got into web and digital and gained a lot of confidence by, as a young person, kind of being like, oh, we'll go deal with this major client and so on. I actually had come from government prior to that, so that helped me out with Drupal, having quite a long career. And I preface all this by saying that, because there definitely was a reason that my phone rang more than other people's might, because, I'm here in the Northwest. There's basically a very minimal community, as well as the fact that I had government, and, the surge in Drupal for government was major. And you're not going to find a lot of people at that time that had web, government, and Drupal. So it was like, yes. That may resonate with other people, that are looking to freelance. Definitely, I've always been an advocate to everyone that I mentor in my life. And I'm also a sultan of unsolicited advice, by the way. So for better or worse on that. I've always said, hey, don't jump around. Don't do a bunch of different things. Try to at least somehow keep your focus in what you do, so that you can say, hey, at this role I was playing this, I was performing this, and in that, and maybe that filters into what I'm doing now. So the more continuum that you can maintain, I think, in your profile, the better off you're going to be. 2011, my friends kind of showed me Drupal. I had a business idea then. Again, I started an online magazine that, used feeds and stuff. It was like, oh, let me start a blog. A few months later, it was like 60 bloggers, and, it was just exciting stuff. So I got to know Drupal 6 quite well. Started an agency pretty quickly, because it was like, I got lucky to be on a gig where I was sitting at a military base. There was 100 people. 150 people, many of them were not Drupal or anything like that, but I just could tell that, they were all, whoever owned those people were literally making 100% of their salary on top of every one of those heads. And so I was just like, this is mind blowing, even though I had some exposure to staffing, I'd never really seen it in action. And so I quickly, basically, formed an agency while there. And that quickly spun out to Drupal Contractors, where, we're like every other agency that, we needed people, way to keep track of them. This whole Drupal thing is pretty good for that. So like, we can probably do that. In the scheme of that, we realized that what we were doing was unique compared to, just another agency. We could actually sell shovels to the miners, and that would be, probably far more beneficial than, just sort of trying to vie for the next project, and competing with all of our friends. So in doing that, we realized, well, Drupal, maybe we want to add some WordPress, maybe we want to do some other things that we hear quite often, React, DevOps, etc. So we formed Esteemed in 2019. The business is growing by 100% a year, and probably actually clocking about 200% now. So it's exciting, there's a lot of things going on, and we're very happy to be nurturing other niches, even WordPress, understanding those challenges, WordPress, and really trying to elevate, everyone, right, beyond our own contractor base. We come out here and talk to folks to try to, help them know what we do and how we're there to help them. And be a developer advocate for people that don't have them, right? You're a freelancer, you don't have, folks from Acquia being your, you don't have a developer advocate on your staff. We are that, and, literally today, an hour before this call, we're doing that for people where, they're on a project and the client thinks, well, many developers would be stressed by this. Well, this one is, and that's why you have complaints about them. And therefore this process needs to look like this. And if it doesn't, well, you're asking for something that's unreasonable. And so, that's kind of how Esteemed and Drupal Contractors works to, facilitate value, not only for the clients that need, providers, but the folks that are those providers. So, hey, why would we freelance as opposed to the job? Well, there's a lot of reasons, right? Some people just can't get there yet, right? Maybe they're at a place in their career where they have not graduated or had enough experience that any, credible individual or entity will hire them. So, they'll kind of work for their uncle or their, friend or whatever to get freelance, get some project experience, right? And I recall, as one of my sound bites, when I joined Accenture, the story was, okay, you've done a lot of contracting, now it's time to graduate to the big leagues. Little do you know, that's true, but on the other hand, they're gonna, maybe they're not as kind as every other, our smaller agencies out there like Canopy, where they really are going to try to extract as much value from you as they possibly can, and although as a freelancer, you may be working your tail off, right, to satisfy your customers, you actually are in business. Some people forget that, right? That even a person, of one is a business, is an agency, if you will. And, I have to remind my own team of that, that those people are even just as important as the Canopies of the world or the Oomphs and the Media Currents and so on. They're on their way maybe to be that. And so, it's a matter of understanding, is that what you want, right? Or do you want to collect a paycheck? Or, some people do both in ways, which can also be a great way to do things, to transition, because inevitably, somebody like my career is, a freelance, start an agency, which is like me and my friends, and then finally get the big job, and then, get to work on projects like the IRS, et cetera, et cetera. So now you have a bunch of experience, but, you don't really want anybody kind of like managing your schedule or giving you the eye when you want to take a month off. Not that that actually ever happens, but you see what I mean. Eventually you may be on the course to back to freelancing, right? To where you want to create that value that is maybe beyond yourself, is something that you control fully, right? So again, that exit strategy as a producer, it's kind of like a term for people that start businesses. Hey, I mean, for me, I'm just addicted to that, right? I can't stop building brands, right? I literally need like medical attention. And, I can't even listen to half the things that are going on in my head, but I mean, we did that and it's been helpful. And now we can, where people might say, well, I don't know if I should hire you, Chris. I mean, you have a company, this was back in the day when I was working more, and I'd be like, well, that's just me. I mean, and I might have a few people or whatever, but you're getting me. Ultimately, however, the moment I didn't want to answer in that way and say, yes, I understand, well, I can help you, but maybe I've found a better project at the moment. So, I could refer you to Matthew, or whoever. And so, it does present you with an opportunity to create something that is beyond yourself, and really could help you. Again, I know many agency owners that are in their 60s, and they're like, hey, I've done this for 20 years, 30 years, but I have no exit strategy at all, right? If I stop working, that's it, it's over, it's done. And so that's a tough position to be in, and kind of good to start planning in our earlier years as to exactly how we're doing that, maybe outside of putting money in the bank. So the principles, I mean, everything is cause and effect. Naturally the what we're doing out there as business people is we're looking to the basics of business, is to fill a true need. I think, we'll cover this in a second, but I mean, anybody that's here in this space should understand what need they're filling. We'll touch back on that in a minute. Definitely want to, I mean, we're engineers. We're always looking to perfect, right? I mean, good is good enough in a way, good enough is fine, if you will. But I mean, I saw a meme recently where it was like folks going over the roller coaster and everybody's like, yeah, right. And there's this one person that's like, in deep thought, it was like, error their head, developer thinking about the bugs they found, or whatever. And you just can't really stop your mind from trying to create that daily improvement. But I know that, any team, any customer that's controlling said team, is going to really, they're going to appreciate that. They're going to feel it. They're going to see it, because, I can tell you, as people may know, as someone in the people business, it's definitely not easy to find good people that take pride in what they do, understand what they're doing, are qualified to be doing what they're doing. This is not like an assumption that we should all, take for granted. No problem. Definitely not. Time is money. Absolutely. Right. I mean, we get paid putting hands to keyboard, right, in this context, until you do something else, like back on that other slide, and grow beyond that. So I mean, before getting started, billing hour one, you really should have your vehicle, right, your business vehicle identified, and easy to throw out your shingle, so to speak, and operate as a sole proprietor. Therefore, you're reporting your taxes on your social security number, right? You haven't gotten a employer identification number from the IRS, which would be, on this side of the equation. And this is certainly possible, right? I mean, if somebody wants to kind of, I have a job, I want to add 5-10 hours a week, I got a gig, you don't really have to actually form a business. On the other hand, though, you're leaving yourself open here. You're leaving yourself open for legal action, right? I mean, it's rare, but it could definitely happen. And by operating as a sole proprietor, everyone should understand that's very real, right? Like if somebody wants to come back and say, well, I mean, this should have been done in 3 months and 6 months, like we said, but all of a sudden it grew to 12. That was none of Mark's fault, but I don't know. I mean, really, we thought we were going to spend this and now we're going to spend that. And I don't know, it's not so good. We want to come after you and, recoup that. And it's certainly possible. So legally. So I always think, why not? Why not spend the whatever it is here, few $100s at the most, to firstly get your limited liability LLC set up. This is something that is thought of as, again, the next step, if you will, from a sole proprietorship. Pretty simple to be able to form this, nothing too complicated. There's various possibilities in doing that. The next, for a smaller company, this is something that maybe have a handful of investors, is to actually form a corporation. S Corp is going to keep you from double taxation as opposed to a C Corp, which would be something that you're like, wow, we're going to raise money. This is going to be a bit, pretty big business, several 100,000, million plus, et cetera, on up the ladder. You can easily convert your S Corp to a C Corp later on down the line if you choose. So, this is definitely a great way to get started. You can also do the opposite and form a Corp and then elect for it to be an S. Next, we want to be ready to work, right? This has been a big challenge out there. I mean, my kids joke with me. I'm like, God, I really feel sorry for you guys with the pandemic and all that stuff. And they're like, yeah, whatever, Dad. Your life hasn't changed at all. I'm like, yeah, I know. That still doesn't mean I don't get what you're going through. But for me, this is no big deal, right? It's all intuitive from the moment one, other than this piece here. On the other hand, for others, it's not easy to work at home. It's not comfortable always to work from home. So, hey, I mean, if it's not, go find yourself someplace to work, right? You have kids, you have, whatever the case may be, you need physical space to be focused, right? And if that's not at home, then you're going to need to solve that, because obviously you can't deliver to your customers if you're not able to work and, provide your service. Let's see here. Securing the documentation for your business. Matt, I don't know. I think you threw that in there. I don't know what that actually means, or maybe that's a remnant from the other slide deck. But in general, we need to get a business license, right? We're going to form that S Corp. We're going to be applying to the IRS for an employer identification number, which replaces our social security number. Definitely wise to start a business bank account. I mean, it costs nothing to do, except, maybe an hour or two of your time. This way, you're not commingling your finances. It's going to be, an enormously easier to untangle that come tax time. Liability insurance. You can do this even as a sole proprietor. So in a way, the extra $150 or whatever it's going to cost to, obtain $1 million, if not 2 million in errors and omission, kind of depending. You can start out at that $1 million mark for, probably $100 a month. And that, buying that peace of mind is like any other insurance, but now, you're actually out there risking yourself, right? I mean, it's a little bit different than, hanging out at home watching TV where, risks might be low. Save receipts. Well, in your bank account, that's all kind of happening. We have receipts these days. It's a little more electronic. So, that's pretty easy to do. I think it all just kind of happens as long as you have the bank account business trail and, and you've done most of your, I have gotten some funny questions where like, what if you don't electronically bank and so on, Amy June's neighbors out there. Basically, I don't know anything about that. I know that, in a modern financial picture where e-banking, everything is being done, on card. So all those transactions are being logged and should be, easy enough to export out of your bank account so that they can be ingested into your wonderful finance and accounting software, right? So really got to do it. I mean, you grow beyond a couple of clients, whatever. I don't care if it's really one, you want a way to be able to invoice, of course, right? I will say, FreshBooks kind of, when I got started, I was like, hey guy, hey buddies, hey friends, what should I use? And I got, the open source crowd, they like open source. And so FreshBooks was recommended to me, and it's PHP. It's very underdog level, and they've upgraded since then. Since I got started with them, we are currently now feeling more sophisticated, and I think that you could even start out like this from the get-go with QuickBooks Online, and it really is proprietary products, man. People pay for them and they pay a premium. And when you're the leader in the space, at times, you can actually deliver on that message in the way that this is far more configurable, scalable to a larger business, et cetera, than, FreshBooks probably ever will be. And of course, there's many other things out there. People like Xero, Xero, a couple others. So, you'll see. Insurance, we talked about that, liability, errors and omissions insurance. Geico has a partner division, whatever it's called Hiscox, real simple to get that done. Local agent, some people have insurance agents they've been dealing with for years. Many of these types of folks can, hook you up with business insurance and on down the line. Create an LLC, like I said, the first step into really organizing as a business. Head on down to the Secretary of State. This can, where you're at, and easily, this can be something that's dealt with in, with this, as I say, it vary by state, but roughly between $150 and $300. A little bit more money, not much, like, $80 more, something like that. You could go to LegalZoom. I think there's another competitor, Legal Shield, that, really can take care of all that stuff for you as well. Marketing, right? Funny thing about advertising, it works, and it's true, right? So, hey, we all like to have, we know about websites, right? So like, having a little website is cool. Seriously, I know people, we're all Drupal experts, et cetera. People, grandmasters, I know, will set up a Squarespace or something like that, to be able to have a brochure for their services. This I didn't ever do, because we kind of started an agency from the get-go. But, to be honest, when I really think about this, and I think I talk about LinkedIn a little bit later, the thing about websites is like, you could make one all day long. If anybody doesn't know about it and it doesn't have, a major draw of traffic and eyeballs, then, that's kind of a waste of your time. Which, as we remember, time is money. So, let's make sure we're aiming at what actually will yield results, right? Like always on everything. And so website, kind of low on the priority list. I think more a better, a well-crafted and honed LinkedIn profile is actually going to be better than that, because it effectively is the de facto search engine for what you're peddling here, which would be, freelance development services, project management, architecture, whatever. In our family of services that we might have, content, any of that stuff. Hey, GitHub, we're developers. We got to have some code. We got to have it ready. Nobody wants to hear you work for Charles Schwab or whatever, and you can't give out any samples. That's just a joke. Don't bother with any of that. If you're trying to freelance and you haven't done something that people can look at, and you actually are a developer, front or back, then you need to stand up something public that people can see. And, expect if you haven't done that, then you're not prepared. Hey, get out there, contribute. Drupal, our chosen niche, is a wonderful thing. It's truly is a phenomenon that we can leverage. And, I've been leveraging for over a decade, literally transformed my web development career. So, no matter whatever grumbles we might have, now and then about Drupal, this is unique. And I tell you, as somebody that's expanded our business into many other fields, we can't often say like we can about Drupal, and I should have that here. I don't, is the Drupal.org profile and embracing that, of course, having it now, then contributing. So you have commits on there. It is literally the number 2 metric that we use. Okay, they're certified, fabulous, very common metric to be able to qualify someone's talent and experience, and not even experience. They're experienced enough to get 60% on an Acquia assessment. But what have they done? Where, when, how, on which projects, who are their mentors, et cetera, right? So all that's extremely traceable in Drupal. And you can't say this about anything else that I know of right off the bat. I'm sure somebody may know. But we look at WordPress, can't do it there. No JavaScript that we know of, we can do anything like that there. So again, we're back to the GitHub, right? That's not like the nice little digest that Drupal.org, has put together for us on our individual profiles. So very important. One of the best advertising methods you could use in this particular community is to do that, because it certainly sets you apart from everybody else, including the people that are amazing at what they do, but just don't make time or don't think they need to until they do, right, to contribute to the community. Is it all right if I pause for like 3 minutes, Amy June?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm going to pause right here, and we'll dive into business for just a second, or for a bit. I just need to pause for 1 minute here. Apologies.
Does anybody have a show tune they want to sing?
I think we all want to hear you sing a show tune.
I think you're gravely mistaken. There's a reason I don't sing in my band.
John Clark has a pattern of abusing behavior.
Thank you, Chad, for that suggestion.
No problem.
Sorry about that, guys. All right, so business, right? You got set up, you got ready to market, you're ready to rock, right? Let's get some clients in the door here, build some hours. So to do that, we're going to need a contract, right? Don't ever do anything on word of mouth, right? We don't do anything. I don't work for our cousin for word of mouth. Create a contract, we're going to put my contact information at the end here. Anybody needs any of that stuff, we're always happy to share. So you have your own statement of work, agreement, and then a statement of work that, really outlines exactly what you expect. It has to be simple. Who are you, right? You're just some individual. So unfortunately, on that note, often what people are going to do when you show up and be like, yeah, I'll contract for you. Sounds good. You're like, great, sign our standard agreement and, we'll get you started, right? And so that all sounds good in a way, right? You have less work to do, right? I don't have to make an agreement. They got one, right? I'm not even going to need one for some time, right? Because basically I'm small and, I can't like tell them they need to sign my contract as opposed to just kind of going along. So I hope I get the job. This can be extremely dangerous. You know, I'm kind of a big picture person, and I mean, I probably put this slide, you know, we probably put this in here, you know, to remind me as much as anybody else here in the audience, because I mean, I have even signed contracts that I glanced through and thought, oh, okay, fine. And then later I'd go back and I'd be like, where's my check? You know? And then they're like, oh, that was a pay on pay contract. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. What is, I can imagine what that means, but let me go read it, you know, and so on. So you have to then be like, well, you know, I'm walking out of here if I don't have a check by tomorrow, blah, 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 which no one likes to get involved in confrontations if that could have been avoided, especially by, you know, again, you being thorough and making sure that you have thoroughly reviewed and understand that they're going to pay you in a period of time that your bank account can withstand. 30 days is extremely standard, right? I know this can be a struggle for people where, again, we work for 30 days, we wait 30 more to get paid. Often they're relying on a second income, second job, or their significant other, et cetera. So all I know is this going to become standard to get it anything to be anything other than this? You know, this is what you're going to face out there. To get it anything other than net 30, you have to literally come upon a particular organization, and some of the contracting recruitment firms out there are like this, where they will say, yeah, it's a contract. Oh, by the way, we need you on our W-2, and they will pay you, you know, weekly, even though, you know, this is a year contract. On the other hand, you know, if it literally is, this is my business, you know, it's called XYZ Dev and blah, blah, blah. That's, you know, what you might be able to expect. You might expect. The other thing, though, is absolutely be paying attention to non-compete, right? Whoever it is that's signing this contract with you, I doubt they're the lawyer, and they may not even know what's in this contract at all. So you might be looking at something and it might be saying to you, well, once you sign this, like, you can't go work for anybody like us for a year or two or whatever, you know, and literally this is a ludicrous idea, yet they don't know, you know, literally they're asking you to sign something that would limit your livelihood directly. This is very possible. I wouldn't say it's common, but definitely possible. So look, the way I like to run contracts, especially for something like this, because, you know, what we're doing here, development services, is, hey, you know, we really want a master agreement that says, you know, this is me, this is you. I'm not going to steal any of your people. You can't steal any of mine, you know, whatever that is. What, you're going to pay me on 30 days, you're going to pay me on 15, you know, feel free to try, believe me. And some people will do that. On the other hand, you know, most commonly they'll be like, oh, we're net 30, you know, okay. And so one way or another, basically you're doing some common basic things here in the master agreement or the MSA. The statement of work from there is going to outline exactly what you're doing, right? I'm going to migrate this project from Drupal 6 to 7. We have 10,000 records, through 7 to 8, I'm sorry, 6 to 8. You know, we're going to have 10,000 records. There's going to be this front end component, that back end. Maybe we have some intelligence, you know, some discovery that's going on there, and we could hang out, you know, hang some values in there. That'd be even better. Or, you know, we expect we're going to do a discovery session at the beginning of the engagement, and, you know, then come up with an estimate. So it could be TBD, to be decided. Nevertheless, though, working in this fashion allows you to have that master agreement in place. You know, you could make, some people will want to renew this annually or not, you know, just sort of, you know, it can be terminated by either party, you know, with so many days notice, et cetera. So in this case, however, that's in place. All we need to do once we're done with that first project with said entity is they come back, hey, you know, Chris, we need to have some maintenance on this thing, you know, could you help us with that? Sure. New SOW, going to be X dollars, you know, it's 10 hours a week, whatever it is, you know, at X dollars an hour, blah, blah, blah. Here's the deal, right? So that we just sent over another one pager, relevant and referencing this MSA that was dated on such day. And, you know, we got ourselves a new contract, get some signatures, good to go. I will say, because I don't think we have this in our tools recommendation, many years went by before I moved to, like, you know, because I can be like, I don't know, I wouldn't call myself cheap, but, you know, discerning. I didn't really see why we needed, you know, electronic signatures, but man, you know, we use something called Sign Now, about 85% reliable, some kinds of disconnects from Google Docs, but basically wonderful, wonderful thing that, you know, once again, time is money. So the more you can automate, the better your bottom line is going to look in the end. Oh, look at this. See, I don't know this slide deck all too well. So, we're going to outline what we're doing in our SOW. What's the level of effort, right, per hour? What's the hourly? If we can do that, right? If not, definitely recommend, let's quantify a 10, 20 hour discovery in the onset of the engagement. And, that'll give us some details, right? Let's see, statements of work, performance, audit training. Yeah, so, just different things you might have that you're doing and articulating in your statements of work. Well, that's the whole thing about this discovery stuff. Once you get there, should you be so lucky to be able to convince your client that that's mandatory and necessary, right? This is not, for the faint of heart. Not everybody has the courage to do that. And they kind of, may take a beating in freelancing should they not feel that confidence to stand up to their client. Honestly, the good news is, and I don't know where this is on the deck, but, Drupal, the demand, luckily, outpaces supply by a long shot, right? So everyone here should have confidence. If they, they are genuinely confident in what they're offering, right? I'm a front-end developer, I'm going to do that for you. Not I'm a full stack developer and I think I can do that for you. Then, they should truly feel that they are entitled to be well paid for their time within reason. Not have to dilute that hourly rate that they originally agreed to by doing a bunch of extra work that was not originally articulated to them, but sort of came up because, now I've moved into the house and there's many other things I've thought of that we need. So that all has to be dealt with in, for the robotic developer types among us, it needs to be dealt with in that way, right? Very robotic, very systematized. This is the scope. You could color code it if you like. This is what I'm doing. This is what you're doing. We used to literally do that at Accenture. Blue for me, red, green for you. And that's that. If it's not on my blue list, well, I'm sorry. That's what we call a change order. We're going to write that up in a separate form and submit that. You sign it, then we can act, not before. Because otherwise, as you can imagine, you'll be diluted into nothing, and all of a sudden your $85 an hour is now 50. Taxes and finances. Stay current on your taxes, man. It is easy to fall behind. You see checks rolling in. You don't really think, some might not think, right? The more relaxed among us, the front enders or whatever, they might think, I don't know, they may not worry about it, or just sometimes pressure can come up behind you. You feel you need all that money that you're getting, and you don't realize or think, no one is telling you in a wonderful talk like this, absolutely want to know what tax bracket you're in, and generally, save something near that every time you are paid. So, I don't know. I'm not going to get into the details, but I think that if you save, somewhere in that 85% range, we like the 80-20 rule around here, 80-85, your write-offs and things of that nature, which is definitely one of the benefits of starting your LLC, will be, you write off a portion of your home, your utilities, if you pay for WeWork or whatever it is these days, you can write all that stuff off, et cetera, whatever it is, the website, whatever. So definitely pay attention to expenses, taxes, savings. And if you do have an LLC, I definitely highly recommend, note to self, Chris, put yourself on payroll, right? You can, everything can be done electronically, et cetera. But, if you do that, then, hey, by the way, your taxes are paid actually, and you won't have to worry, right? There won't be any anxiety, which it can be serious, right? And if you do actually fall behind, which, the last person that gave this talk with me exemplified that they did. And man, oh man, those IRS penalties will take you by, they will take you by storm. And it will be very hard, potentially setting you back years to, be able to catch up. Sometimes the IRS will come along and be like, wow, you make a bunch of money. We should get money from you every few months, not every year. Got it? Good. So, that really comes again. If you've already put yourself on payroll, then that won't happen. But if you have not, then, this is a nice way as well, right? Better to get it out of your bank account every 3 months than, oh my God, my dog needs an operation, Well, maybe we could dip into the tax account, just, you never stop saying that probably. So in any case, taxes, death and taxes. Retirement savings, right? I mean, we're sole entities potentially. Maybe it's our side gig, but once it becomes your only gig, nobody gave you the 401k. Nobody's matching you. None of that is happening, right? You have to, remember whatever age we are. I don't care if there's, the 20 somethings out there. The sooner we start saving for retirement, the sooner we start leveraging compound interest, right? Which is the sole, basically one of the more important mechanisms in the world ever to amass wealth, we'll call it, or anything at all to be able to retire on, right? So traditional IRA, I mean, basically these are all pre-tax accounts, right? This, I don't know much about Roth or IRAs. I'm actually surprised this says that, and I might be from Doug, but as far as I know, all IRAs are pre-tax, effectively. Therefore, whatever you put in there, is not taxed, right? So it's going to be allowed to grow untaxed until you take it out, right? If you take it out past retirement legal age, then it is not taxed. So that is exciting, right? That is basically the government giving you free money. And if you do it prior to retirement age, emergency money and so on, there definitely will be penalties, and you pay the taxes and all that bit. So otherwise, these are great things. This is actually interesting. I'll spend one more second on this. This is something I never knew about until in the last couple of years. But an SEP IRA is something specific to business owners, right? So if you own a LLC or something to that effect, you can start yourself up an SEP IRA. And I don't have the particulars off the top of my head, but basically it will allow you to contribute about 4 times what you would be able to contribute to any other common IRAs or 401k. And it has to be contributed from your business. But in order, in doing that is, incredible, right? Because otherwise these other IRAs, they're capped at a, pretty low level. You look at it, you're like, well, geez, how does any American ever, retire with money? Not easy, right? The level of control placed on you in these vehicles is like incredible comparatively here, where you're able to really bank the kind of money untaxed that you could be making in freelancing. And I guess it's worth it to say, sorry, taxable brokerage account. I mean, that means like, you don't have it in any of these vehicles and you're investing in the stock market through your brokerage account. I mean, all that's just taxed right away, right? No benefits at all, no compound interest, or at least, the minimal amount other than whatever you're making, maybe you're having that reinvested, but that's all you're getting, right? There's no benefit there. Imagine, all the money they would have taken from you, now you're allowed to keep and have interest and growth compound with that. That's, again, the biggest gift the government ever gave us at all. Back to marketing. All right. Must-haves on their website, and I want to be contradictory. I mean, like I said, you can definitely get away with a website without a website with LinkedIn, and I mean, like I said, I think we do a lot more business. 80% of inbound is coming from like my LinkedIn or other high-profile individuals that we have in our network. Replicating the same, so it's not like I'm special or anything like that. I'm sure there's those in the audience that are also getting, 6-7 leads a week on recruiters, from recruiters and so on. And we'll talk about that in a minute, because I know when I mention that, people are like, oh, yeah. So, that there's certain ways to go about leveraging that, more than you might not, more than others in some cases. Otherwise, hey, websites. I mean, I tell you, as somebody that's made websites for like 30 years or something, I know that we just recently, even though this brand is new, we kind of just recently went back and we're like, wait a minute, do we actually have call to action forms on all of our pages like this other company that actually looks like they're together? No, we don't. And so, you may think, oh, I've done that, I know it, but no. Like, you really need to think about it. And I tell you the same thing I would say about LinkedIn. I mean, I've spent some time to think about it. I already have an enormous amount of leads coming in from it. Met with somebody that specializes in that, lead generation from LinkedIn. And they were like, nah, I see what you're saying, but like, you're not actually doing all that you could do. And, that is a bit of a gray area. We are who we are. We don't want to get too salesy, with our, what we can do in our TED lines and all that, I mean, improve your development experience by, I don't know, that's not going to really work for everybody. So, temper it to your personality, but do realize that there are, SEO components to LinkedIn where if you have these skills, Drupal 8, Twig, et cetera, if you have that there, then people will find you from those keywords, right? It's just as simple as that. So there's no shame in that, right? So, get your services offerings on your website. Like, what are they, right? Don't just tell me, if you have a maintenance package, you'll do maintenance for X and you got a friend in the Ukraine that'll do it with you for 24 hours a day or whatever, articulate that, right? I don't know, in the beginning, you might want to offer some free estimates. I mean, I don't think this is my bullet. I don't always, I frown on this, to be honest, right? I mean, we can talk about it. I'll give you what we think of in the business as, this is maybe a term that's familiar to people, t-shirt size. Might give you a small, medium, large on this project, within a few seconds with, our own experience to be able to say that, with, whatever caveat of accuracy, 50% plus or minus, basically, without the details, literally, right? This could cost 100, might cost 150,000. I'm not sure yet. Right. But we can say this is a medium or a large project, right? Depending on what we've seen. Other than that, anything else, like we're actually writing things down and, creating line by line items, it's best to sort of say, hey, that costs money, it costs time. I'd rather get in and do this thoroughly for you. So, 8 hours, 10, 16 of, actually analyzing this project, getting logged in, understanding, the parts and pieces, then I can actually give you an accurate, actionable estimate with a contingency, by the way. I don't have that here, but we want to make sure always our estimates have contingencies. In other words, everything I know here, that contingency, like I said, that 50% plus or minus, that's about the biggest contingency you'll ever see. Really want to get things down to the 10, 15%, right? Like, I know everything I could know right now, so I can tell you approximately what this is going to be. On the other hand, I wouldn't recommend anyone ever does a fixed bid project, right? Like, maybe they'll, I can do this way. Great. Sell and development time in the contract market, we don't do that. We do per hour, and, there are some brackets and ranges that we should be getting that may come up in questions, and I'm happy to answer. Sure, feature, what have you done? Throw out some case studies, get that together immediately, right? Like, never do a project without documenting it and showing what you did, what value you brought to the picture, because that is your sales brochure in the future, right? Those are your testimonials, if you will, or the beginnings of them. Contact form, in my opinion, calls to action. Get in touch with me. Do you want to buy now? My services should be everywhere, on every form, on every page, at the bottom of every page, that should be there. Testimonials, get them, right? Always, 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 build the best relationship. Even if you are an introvert, work at it. Get a checklist. I got, these 5 things I need to say so that, I am checking the relationship building box, right? And in that, later when you go back and say, hey, what do you think? Did you give me something like this? Providing an example to people is really important. Some people are like, oh, sure, write whatever you want, put my name on it. You don't want that, but you may want to kind of give them something that they can, rubber stamp and tweak, oh, well, maybe you could change this word or that, right? Blogging is like community contributions, right? You get your name out there, enough stuff, you start coming up in SEO, then you become, Damian McKenna or something, you become an authority, right? Once you become an authority, you could work at Media Current, or you could go out there and charge, a lot more for your services. Bless his heart in doing that, right? Because this is, again, building your credibility, right? All this kind of stuff, just more exposure, right? As one person shows, we often never have time for any of this stuff, right? I've never written a blog for anybody in my life, right? Like, just never going to happen. I find other people to write blogs, but I can't do that. So that's okay, right? Know what you're good at, as somebody has said earlier. Know what you love, know what you're best at. And, if you have a website, finding someone else to generate that content still is going to bring the lead back to you, right? So, no problem. Hey, get involved, have a personal membership. You can join Esteemed, by the way. I mean, I try not to plug too much, but you can join Esteemed, have us as your sales channel, and get a free annual Drupal personal membership. So there you go. Network, right? Get out there, volunteer. You don't have a portfolio, make one. Do something yourself, right? Many things that I've done in the past when I first got started was like, yeah, I made this. What do you think? Wow, oh, you made this? Yeah, okay, cool. Well, you can do the job. Great, good. I didn't need anybody else to validate it other than that particular employer evaluating what I did here now, right? This is crying out loud. I was doing that like, my first computer or whatever. Hey, start a meetup, join a meetup, volunteer at a meetup. This is amazing for your credibility. You put that on your LinkedIn, you put that on your resume. I'm a co-contributor, the SFDUG, Olympia, Seattle, whatever, I mean, Olympia counts here for government, right? State capital. Present yourself, get out there, talk, try to do anything you can. I mean, we do this with our own contractor pool where, they do not feel confident. They've never done this before. They've never spoken in front of a group, but we know that they're capable communicators, right? They can tell us everything play by play that's going on in a project. So it's like, well, I mean, I'm pretty sure you could get up in front of a group, most likely, unless you have anxiety issues, and present this, a useful topic to someone that they would benefit from. Mentor, right? I don't care if you're 3 years in, you can probably help the person who's, 2 months in, and in any minimal level. This will help in so many ways, your general self-esteem, theirs, your credibility, word of mouth. This individual, Matt Pritchard, I mean, he's just been the best. He's done whatever he could to help me. Man, if you need help, ask him. And, we know that there's some sources out there that we can seek mentors. Certainly, Steam, definitely, Drupal Contractors, etc. Other working groups, individuals within our Drupal.org Slack, of course, etc. So whatever you can do to get involved in what's happening, you don't feel confident about getting involved and contributing to code, offer to help with documentation. This project, man, needs so much help, needs all the help it can get all the time. We're competing against Adobe, my friends. Okay. So that's the reality. Adobe has hundreds of millions of dollars beyond us, and therefore needs all, anything we want to benefit from this tool, best we can do, the best thing that we can do is get involved. And that, again, it's going to pay back, right? As people understand that you literally are a serious Drupaler that cares about this product and, its fate in the future. And literally every contribution is going to help. Free classes, sure. Like Mike Anello, Drupal Easy, give him a little plug here. He's doing lunch and learns for us now at Esteemed, and he comes out and does the talks and all this kind of stuff so that he can promote his business, right? And that is teaching Drupal, and this is essentially no different. Hey, go to virtual camps. Now you can hit every camp all the time, right? You can hit up whatever meetups you want, which are cool. Where are your friends at? If you have been to camps, we begin to form a bit of a family, at these camps. And I mean, definitely some of the best friends I have and have had for many years, are in that family. And, in this time when we're all going through some difficulties, this is one of the ways that really you can stay connected. And I mean, I've really even talked to some of my good friends in the past, couple days where it's like, hey, how's it going? Where you been? And, you know, they're really struggling, you know, due to the different conditions we're facing out there. So, you know, don't discount it. Don't say no big deal. You know, it is a big deal. You can learn, you can present, you can be involved, you can get to know people, they get to know you, you have some fun. You know, I mean, at Atlanta camp, man, I mean, I played a game, all right? Chris don't play games. I played a game and had fun, you know, for the first time, and who the hell knows how long, you know what I mean? I couldn't tell you. So, you know, it can be like that too. You family, all these other things. No, I'm taking time for this. I have to, right? This is part of work, but hey, we're going to have fun, you know, and that can be really critical in a lot of people's lives. You know, I mean, some of us have time for all this stuff. We try. I think it's a matter of kind of zeroing in on what you find is important for you. You know, I mean, LinkedIn's going to be a lot of times where the leads are. Maybe Twitter's going to be where your dead friends are, you know, and that's all good. You know, there are some tools that you can use. And I think, you know, Matt Pritchard again here, our marketing director, will be happy to, you know, help and mentor anybody here that needs a little push in, you know, automating social a bit. And it, you know, that can be a huge help, keeping yourself top of mind, as we say in sales speak. And you know, if you want the phone to ring, you know, it's a bit more than just being a Drupal developer. I mean, it will ring just because you say that in a way. But I think on the other hand, that, you know, it depends on what is the quality of that lead as well, right? What are you getting yourself into? Specific slacks. Well, you know, I wouldn't recommend anything over 10. How are we getting work, right? We already talked about LinkedIn. We talked about meetups. We talked about networking, getting on, you know, contributing, all that kind of stuff. Well, you know, I mean, I can only say that from experience, pretty much. You do all that stuff, you won't have to be doing any active outbound searching, right, per se. Maybe you're brand new and you really need to do that. Once again, you know, I mean, I've talked to people today that are involved this week in, you know, billion-dollar businesses. You know, we all agree LinkedIn is essentially the de facto recruiting platform for the world, and therefore, you know, you get your act together there, you're pretty much good to go in the Drupal niche. I mean, they will find you. They're out looking for them. You know, COVID has impacted things to some degree, but not really to that any great extent that we would experience, you know, now. It's pretty much, you know, God willing, past, and you know, people need to activate and mobilize for 21, getting budgets in check, finishing things up for 20, on and on and on. So, you know, you may have to be doing that. I would tell you the only thing I would ever think you'd ever need to do is go onto LinkedIn, set yourself up a job alert for Drupal, and, you know, your phone, get the app, it'll hit you up with, you know, daily updates of new roles. Some percentage of those will be contract, and, you know, there you go. You could pursue them yourself, or, you know, wait for these guys to come after you. In many cases, they are posting the job, right? So you're not going to be getting to the direct employer anyway, but there are ways to actually filter to only be dealing with direct employers. Naturally, we know, you know, things like Drupal.org, jobs.drupal, of course, the amazing Badcamp job board, Drupal Contractors, something like TopTal. You know, you could get involved with folks like us. That's a little bit different, right? They're going to take you in, if you will, and you know, make you part of the network, understand all of your skills, right? And then become essentially a sales channel for you. Right now, we're like, you know, Mark is the best back-end developer that I know, and this is why, and I've worked with him on projects, you know, or whomever that might be, right? You're literally going to have, you know, a bit of an advocate there that has gotten to know you or knows you, right? And that definitely can make all the difference, especially if you are younger and, you know, need that endorsement, right, to get hired and start building your portfolio. So that's no longer necessary. You know, we have folks that have come to us from other mentors and said, hey, you know, take a chance on this individual or that. We have, you know, based on that endorsement, and, you know, it's worked out great. Yet there we are then pass that torch to endorse that individual to, you know, they're not just going to kind of come in, you know, they can like code and stuff. That's awesome. But no, now they're going to go to an agency. And, you know, as if you don't know, I mean, agencies are the, assembly shops, right? And then many other names for them, boiler rooms, things like that, where, clients on the end are wrenching most of them, especially in the mid-level, to deliver, for the lowest price, on the, most rapid timeline. And again, you know what I mean? Few have the courage to say, no, I can't do it that way. It has to be this timeline, et cetera, et cetera. So until you become more sophisticated and you don't mind losing some customers that, when you say no, they're out the door, then, that's just essentially where you are on the ladder. So, it really can be helpful to utilize an advocate, a channel, recruiter. I don't know, you know what I mean? A lot of times they don't know what they're talking about nothing. And, they just heard about Drupal 15 minutes ago. So they can't really intelligently represent you. They'll probably be coming back to you with rates that are too low, da, 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 da. I will say that, there is value there. It's 80-20. Again, if anybody's not familiar with that principle, I think it's coming up. But, 20% of these deals could be really great. 80% probably will not be. So, obviously, like outbound sales or anything like that, that's volume based or numbers based, you might hit 100 people until you find the 5 that, really want to do business with you, the 3 out of the 5, 2.5 that will become, good customers. It is all a numbers game, because it's all just dealing with people and needs, timing, all that kind of stuff. There you go. Right. This is a book that I recommend. I have, our CTO, Albert Volkman, reading again. It's not just for, business people. It is a law, 80-20 is a natural law that we're going to see, in nature in a fractal sense, right? So it's not only 80-20 where 80% of your results essentially going to come from 20% of activity. You could look at traffic routes, all different sorts of things like that, and that's actually going to hold true, right? So this is something that, if you learn, you realize that, well, shoot, I really shouldn't worry about the 80 over here. I need to know who are the 20% of my clients that are giving me the most business. I can probably get rid of the bottom 10, 20% here and focus on these guys, and then actually, impact my bottom line far more dramatically than, if I was happy keeping these 10 clients instead of really paring it down to 7. And, the top 3 are providing me, 80% of my sales in a year, right? So why not buy them the Christmas ham or whatever, and really try to, know when their cousins' birthdays are or whatever the case may be, right? So, and again, right now you're a freelancer, now you're in sales. No getting out of it, unless you're going to hire somebody really to do that for you, which, once again, like a Drupal Contractors or somebody like that can act like that. And of course, you can also go out and literally, hire some person that, I do lead gen, have leads in your box, whatever. I mean, I don't know, there's so much of that. I don't necessarily get involved with it all. And we have, examined that very, very closely. And maybe that can happen. Maybe they can provide value, maybe they can't. We don't really know, right? In our incredibly deep niche here, I think we're better off, as Amy said about the AI, right? If anybody hadn't joined the call at that time, this AI is kind of getting Drupal right, but still mistakes it for this or that, right? It would take you a long time to train someone up to actually talk the talk and walk the walk to work for your company and sell this service, intelligently, as well as you might be able to, with a little more automation, and such, and again, good time management and identification of who should I actually be aiming this at, and be very discerning about who that is. And effectively, have a timeline. If folks aren't producing, they're not giving you anything, they're giving you a runaround, little 2-bit projects, this, that, or the other thing, not what you want, carve out time on a Saturday or whatever to replan, right? What's my plan of action here? How can I focus on the 20 and extract more business? And Perry over here will tell you in 80-20, and this is certainly not his law, right? More of like a Warren Buffett or things like that. You know, your best customers are going to be your existing customers, right? It's 80% more likely that you can convince your existing customer to buy from you than a new customer, right? This is much less probable. Exactly. Get everybody, whoever's excited, keep talking to them. Yeah, this should be earlier in the deck, right? We're in, like I said, right? You know, this is Drupal. Most of us probably don't have too much of a hard time, you know, getting people to say, hey, you know, I need a Drupal developer. That's true, and I think it's a matter of timing and making sure you know your worth, making sure you don't take the first thing that comes along, because often, you know, that might be a recruiter who, you know, is offering 60 for something that should be 85 or worse, you know, et cetera. So it's very important to know who you are, what you do, what you're worth. As I say, you know, we'll have my contact information at the end of the slide. Be happy to, you know, it's a meetup. That's what this is all about. Let's nurture one another and help, you know, help you understand that. And, you know, if you don't feel comfortable doing that in a group setting, we can, you know, we can certainly be happy to break off and help. You know, timing. I mean, hey, you know, if you got a 6-month gig, probably want to start looking for the next gig, you know, month 5, month 4, maybe get something in parallel. It's not all, you know, basically it's always good to be in parallel, right? So it's basically, of course, one might think logically better to have 2 part-time contracts rather than 1 full-time contract. Because that's our insurance, right? That's our backup plan. Better to replace half of our income than all of it. You know, the day, oh, by the way, I just learned that you know, the funding's been pulled and, you know, pandemic hit or whatever. And, you know, that 6-month contract, by the way, you know, it's set in your contract. It had to do with the needs of the business. The needs of the business have changed. You know, see you later. By the way, Chris, my contract just ended. You know, it's that kind of thing, right? That, so that if you're really layering a bit, you'll have less concern. Just essentially building, you know, a list of clients, right? You're not just dependent on this one contract. I know people that do that. You know, maybe they're the people that can snap their fingers and find another contract, you know, within a day or two, which is what the day, you know, that they wanted that time off to begin with. Yet, you know, you have to know who you are, right? Is that who you are, or are you just an up and comer? You're in your first couple of years. You know, definitely want to be more cautious how you navigate your income generation. As we already started touching on, you know, because I don't know, I just kind of talk this stuff. Then the slides come. Hey, you know, I mean, it's real. 80% of your volume is going to come from 20% of your clients. There's no question about it. Absolutely, positively. Anybody that is doing this now, I challenge you to go do this and you'll see it's true. As we talked about, building relationships, got to do it no matter what. If you're not good at it, you know, maybe you look to your significant other. I mean, this is extremely common, right? You know, partnerships start there often, and, you know, we're in the home now, blah, blah, blah. Hey, you know, find somebody that they do like if you're just completely, you know, grumpy, because we want to build relationships. We want these people to, again, keep us top of mind so that they know when they need a migration expert or they need a crack front end developer. I don't care if it's been a year. The company's changed hand twice. This happened to us last week. But you know what? The person on the team that last worked with Josh Kendall wants Josh again. You got him? Yeah, we do. Great. Right. So Josh has a business within our business. Your best clients are often your existing ones. We talked about that. Define your criteria for a good client. How much business do you expect to get from them or hope to get from them in a year? Right. Do they, I don't know, do they respect your time? Right. I have people that, you know, I haven't talked to in a year. They walk in, they think they can order my team around, order me around, you know, inch up deadlines when I already set them. You know, that's not a good client. Who knows? You know, maybe you're listening. So, you know, no big deal, right? If they are. Quickly dispense with those that, you know, aren't good, right? Because that's all there is to it. I whip out this anecdote. I'm not, you know, perfectly seasoned on the details, but, you know, I had read recently that one of the key individuals that grew General Electric to where they, you know, to their pinnacle, used to fire the bottom performing 10% of employees every year, and that would be a great number for General Electric, and the lowest performing clients, right? He would cease doing business with them and cease doing business with cease employing the bottom 10 and focus on everything above that, right? In a value weighted way. And, it's mathematical. Monthly revenue. Hey, freelancing is great, but if we get caught up only making money from putting our hands to the keyboard, we will effectively, most of us, soon sink into depression, right? Because it is a treadmill, it is difficult, it's annoying in that way, in if I don't work, if I get sick, I'm not billing, I'll probably lose my contract, et cetera, right? Bad news. Much, much better. Folks that start little hosting companies, right? They got 5, 10 clients, it's their grandma or whatever that got their start. I don't know, but one way or another, to have 10, 15 hosting clients where, you're charging a few $100 a month, you bundle your maintenance with that. And, that's, I don't know, my other business, we barely ever look at it, it's a wonderful thing. So, it's really something that you can bundle maintenance, audit. You're not a content strategist or SEO expert, but they're everywhere. You can do this, you can find them. And, you're the expert, right? You're the developer, how, and, forgive me for anybody that is not that, but those that are, you are the authority, right? So everything topples down from the developer. If you need people to help you with that content stuff, we can do that. We know that. We understand how it works. We understand people, know people that know the system, can do this for you, could teach you how to do this, etc. Right? So that's really how you want to get in, and again, get that foot in the door and leverage it to, again, blossom the account from, one thing to many things, right? And heck, you could probably build quite a nice business with, say, 2 to 4 or 5 good clients. I literally mean, you could be doing a 7-figure business with just that amount of clients. Retainers, they're cool, right? Basically, most newer freelancers wouldn't be able to facilitate such a thing, right? Once you get a little more confident, you've got a portfolio that's substantial, you can then say, hey, you need me, that's great. I need 5,000-10,000 a month. And I'll be billing hours against that, right? Like a lawyer would. And, at which time that's depleted to 80%, we're going to send you some reminders that you need to pay. Once it's clips to 100, we don't work anymore until that's paid, right? And this is a very nice vehicle and way of doing things. And people definitely, look to graduate to this. And I suggest you do the same. Time is money. Don't waste time. 80-20, you're going to look to how you actually spend your time in a day, right? And if you spend a whole lot of time like sort of chatting with your buddies on Drupal.org, chat, or, answering other people's questions, or I don't know, chatting with your significant other around the coffee pot or whatever, I don't know that your team and project manager is going to be too happy with you. You're going to realize that you also have not been working on biz dev, and getting new leads in the door, entertaining and understanding, what you might like to choose as your next opportunity, layering, all this stuff, right? No good. So really need to understand and take a step back. Like, how do I actually spend my time in a day? And in doing that, let's weight some of these tasks that I engage in, right? Am I writing back-end code that no one else could write but me? Or, generally, there's no one else in the mix here that should and can do that. So, hey, that's a high value task, right? In my $100 an hour, that task actually might be weighted at like $1,000 an hour. But, tracking my time down here, obviously have to do that, or, I don't get paid. Tracking my time might be like really literally worth like $10 an hour. So, long ago, I don't know, like 6 years ago or something, definitely, I was still squarely billing and all that kind of stuff, a hands-on developer. I hired someone that was a PM out of the Ukraine that, you know, I literally would have everything, you know, have them do everything I possibly could, you know, enter my time in 2 different systems because there's an end client and an agency, you know, look for new deals, whatever. And another book I don't have on here that, you know, people might hear and think is cliche, I highly recommend, you know, with all fallout intended, is The 4 Hour Work Week. I don't have his name off the top of my head, but the Perry Marshall and the 80/20 folks, and there's actually another, just, you know, that's sales and marketing, but there is an 80/20 book that's been around for many years. And, you know, 4 Hour Work Week, you know, I mean, I don't know when I'll ever get to 4 hour work weeks, you know, maybe someday in the next few years, hopefully. But I do know that, you know, that idea of really, you know, understand what you do not have to be doing yourself, right? And if it's something that, you know, as Amy June pointed out, you know, if we can allocate this to another human, you know, part of the beauty of this is they need that job, right? They really do. They need that job. They need that $8 an hour or that $10 an hour that you're going to pay them, you know, and out of your 80 or 75 or 65 even, you know, in the book, they recommend anyone making over $30 an hour should do this. And, you know, then you're then freed up to concentrate on your 80/20 and improving your efficiency. And, you know, of course, right, you know, in that 6-month contract, what was the most important thing you did? Close the deal, right? How did you present yourself? How did you close that deal? Why? Right? Was it timing? They just needed somebody? Are you expendable? Or, you know, did you wow them with your amazing personality and technical prowess, right? Yep. Look at your time. Analyze it. Is that it? All right. There we go. And here I am. Anybody that needs us, you know, please reach out to me. Happy to help or help you connect with someone on my team that can, you know, act as a mentor and help you out. You know, we only have probably, I'd say, I don't know, like 15% of our workforce or something like that. You know, we're creeping to the 20 deployed, but we absolutely would languish the same attention on someone that, you know, we're hoping to build up over time, and, you know, literally orientate them as to what it takes to succeed in this world, you know, effectively kind of a one-on-one coaching and mentoring as to what we're doing here. So, you know, don't hesitate to reach out and let us know, you know, let me know how I could help.
Does anybody have any questions?
I did have one question, jumping really far back there. Chris, you had a slide that was talking about non-competes, which I can understand with certain types of job roles. You know, if you're working as an architect or working with marketing or sales, there's a lot of processes and collateral that's very particular to a company that'd be very reluctant to have that getting out. Of course, you have things like non-disclosure agreements that I would imagine can help insulate both parties. But have you ever encountered kind of like a bully, sort of a pushiness to non-competes that you just couldn't get around?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's, you know, this is the earth, right? So there are so many like crazy, there's not only crazy people, as we all know, there's like evil people, right? So as I've said, you know, I've had people thrust upon me just about everything you could possibly imagine, including, you know, something no one literally could live with, work within, you name it, right? But again, I really feel what happens is like lawyers, you know, give me a great lawyer, you know, and then they get one and they write this agreement, and, you know, maybe the leadership, right, you know, top 3 C-levels read this, maybe, big maybe, and probably not. The lawyer said, it's great. You're gonna love this contract. This is gonna help you, right? And they start pushing it out, right? It's just push it until somebody's like, this is totally illogical. Like, I cannot work on your 3-month engagement and then be free to operate in the way that I do, right? So I would just say, like I said, it's expect there to be, you know, for every 8 that you sign, right? There might be out of the 10, there could be 2, that have that sleeper in there that is like, forget about it. And, I mean, in the end, right, they most likely need you more than you need them. So, if you miss something, then I don't know. I don't feel like, I never felt any shame in being like, well, yeah, sure. I can see how you might think that will work, but that's definitely not going to work for me. So, change that. You've got a little bit of, by the end of the day, and then I can come back to work tomorrow. And if not, let me know when you do, and then I can come back to work. Right. I mean, and that, you have to stand up for yourself in a very, professional manner, what's the word, a congenial manner. We don't have to be, take offense, but, I think that expect anything at all to happen. Right. And all you need to do, right, again, is hark back to that developer mentality that is variable based, right? Like, I do X, you need Y. I can do that for you for Z. And this is the period, right? And just, essentially, we're going to extract whatever those values are that are the keys to us being able to do the work, and then, leave you on my merry way and operate as a freelancer in the future without you encumbering me with your contract that was for 3, 6 months, a year. Right. You know what I mean? That's about it.
Right. Awesome. Thank you.
I have a question about that. Do you have a sense for whether anyone ever goes and actually tries to enforce those non-competes?
Oh,
I see
yeah.
that in California,
That'd be different.
they're mainly harassment issues that
Yeah.
they're really
Yeah. In California,
hard to-
here we are. It's the only place that will not allow that, right? With all the other things that they don't allow, which, I love California. It definitely is difficult to do business in California. So yeah, Brian, to your point, like, Californians operating in California should expect to see that less. But, somebody's from Florida over here. I know this guy. And, and so on, right? So we can be anywhere today. Don't let your guard down, right? Don't forget you're not operating in California anymore, right?
Right.
There's a friend of ours in the Chattanooga area, Lee, the loud, tall British guy. Don't know if you know him.
That crazy crew.
Yep. He has a standard non-compete. The moment you give him a non-compete, he tells you that'll be $40,000 in advance. Thank you. And
he's got a nice sense of humor.
Yeah, and everyone says, no, he's serious. You
Right,
give him
right? That's just his gatekeeping, his way to gatekeep.
You tell him IE compatibility, that's $12,500. You tell him, you give him a non-compete, it's $40,000, and the reason he does it is there's nothing that you're doing that he couldn't replicate before he even knows you. He could compete with
and
you
I think, Michael,
without signing the contract.
It's a valid thing, But to be honest, and if I'm hearing you right, because I don't know that nuance of his business, but 40K wouldn't work, right? So I'm curious about that, whatever.
What ends up happening is that no one signs it.
Right, I know what you mean, but what I'm trying to say is like, let's think about this. I've seen non-competes and, employment agreements, for more of a full-time thing. And this is relevant, right? Who knows? Could be a year-long gig, could be a contract, who knows? Often people will use their employment agreement contract for everything, right? Contractors full-time. And I have seen agreements that's like, well, if I leave this job, I can no longer operate as a Drupal developer for 2 years. This is absurd, of course.
Yeah, that's absurd.
So 40K wouldn't cover it, jokingly, right? But still.
Well,
right?
I mean, if you put it in advance, that's what scares people. They're like, oh wait,
of course. And I'm not trying to argue the point. I'm trying to argue the point that you literally, or make the point at all. You literally could be talking about like $500,000 here, depending on who you are.
Yeah, that is true.
And again, limiting your livelihood to that degree. And it could just all be in that one little sentence, that your kid called you when you were reading, et cetera. So. But thanks for that, Michael. I appreciate that. No,
great talk, by the way. I only caught the second half of it, but it was a pretty good second half.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. I had one other question from the first half, which is if you're a sole proprietor and you decide to incorporate, if you're still just one person, how much liability protection do you actually get from incorporating?
Oh, a lot, right?
What about piercing the corporate veil when you're just an individual?
That's right. Yeah. So that was what I was going to say, Brian. Well, that depends on the judge, my friend. So, some people, they don't mind piercing the corporate veil, right? And if you don't have a legal mind on your side, that might happen, right? And it could. So let's back up, right? So sole proprietor, corporation, right? Corporation is a new person, right? So now, I have formed Luke McCormick Incorporated, right? And I did the other day, by the way. I can blame anything that goes wrong on that corp, right? And so it's a new individual. It's like a new entity, right? So no longer am I personally responsible for what Luke McCormick Inc. does in a year, right? I might be the chief executive officer of said company, but I am no longer responsible. Unless there has been some egregious error that Luke McCormick Inc. has committed out there in the world that my plaintiff can convince a judge that it's like, hey, this is outrageous. I mean, we need to go after Chris, right? We're piercing, we move that you pierce the corporate veil. And
Those are perfectly valid business expenses.
Right. So, you know what I mean? Like, and as far as that, your point there with the one person or anything like that, it is, right? You're no longer a sole proprietor with maybe, you're awesome, you have insurance or something. That's cool. Nevertheless, if somehow you got into it, and I mean, it's rare, right? We don't see projects in this world that are, excess of $1 million or anything like that. So, you have your insurance, you're probably going to be fine. On the other hand, I'm not a lawyer, and this isn't legal advice. I forgot to say that. And, on the other hand, forming the corp, right? It's there, you have it. It's a mechanism protecting you additionally on top of the $1 million. I mean, God knows, Lord knows we probably show up and do our jobs, right? And therefore, any other kind of like angle to try to come after us is effectively, pure fabrication and like hope on their end, right? If that actually happened. And honestly, to tell you the truth, I've never ever seen in the hundreds of people that I deal with in projects, and many over the past over a decade, never seen anybody get into that situation. I have seen companies get into that situation, and they very much deserve to be in that situation.
Yeah.
We'll save that for Luke and I's former employer.
Thanks.
Does that answer your question, Brian? I mean, it's a good,
Yeah.
it's worth the $400, man, or whatever it is,
Well, in California, it's 800.
Yeah. Can I tell? Well, no, let's talk about that, actually. Because I live in Washington, right? And I'll tell you what, one thing I can't stand is when the Department of Revenue calls me up and tells me I owe them money on my net. Sorry, I've been having trouble with that lately. Brain. Net revenue. They want a piece of my net revenue. Not only do they want a piece of my net revenue, I can't go out and buy anything at all in the state without them charging me, 8-9%, which can be nice. There's no income tax, but they want a piece of my net revenue, and that's not cool, right? Especially when most of the time I never made any money in Washington to begin with. So if you like, Brian, and anybody else here, when you do go form your corp, you certainly can, by the way, and I recommend, because 85 or so, in excess of 80% of the corporations in the country are formed in Delaware. You can form your Delaware corp. You will have amazing benefits, and you do not need to live in Delaware. You do need to engage what's called a registered agent, right? And, you might think, oh, is that where my mail goes and stuff? No, it literally is just like, if the state wants to serve you for an infringement, they would serve the registered agent. Other than that, legal papers. Other than that, your headquarters is in Cali. Your address is your home, blah, 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 no big deal. This is what we do with Esteemed after many years of being like, oh, let's go down to our own home state and form a corp. No, I finally was like, all the research I've ever read says I shouldn't do that. But yet I've heard that if you have a simplistic business, which this might be considered, to do that, right? To go to your home state. And, depending on who your home state is, that may not be awesome, is all I can say.
Yeah.
Just remember that when you incorporate in another state, your business has to live by that state's corporate rules, not by
That is
your
true.
home state.
That's because that's where that is where your business is located. Exactly. Right. You just happen to be here at headquarters, but it's a Delaware corporation. Right. But it's great. You can go for the, Google up that, the benefits of all that. And I think it is much cheaper and, whatever. They're in the business of corporations, basically. Yeah. It's like one of their main revenue streams, I think, as a state. So.
Yeah. No, I've had 2 corporations for decades, so but I was just curious to hear your thoughts on it.
Hey, I tell you, that was the best thing I ever did. Not seeing that tax bill coming in from the state of Washington makes my heart sing. I still have one more corp left here, and I can't stand it. It's also much less maintenance as well, right? Not to have that quarterly or monthly requirement, right? To have to log in and manage something that's happening in your state as well as at the federal level and all that. So I recommend the Delaware route myself. Any other questions? Anybody want to talk about rates or anything like that? I was just, that's something that came up at Bad Camp, and I find a battle we fight every single day. You know what I mean? Luke's one of our peeps, and Matthew is certainly on our team. We fight this every single day for him, for example, for all of us, and it is tough, man. It's just tough. And I think that we hear often, sort of when we get on the phone with leaders, right, who are like sort of engineering their businesses, they are very much convinced, and I can tell you guys, we're insulated greatly, right, as opposed to in many other areas, that developer hours are just becoming, due to the globalization of the craft. It is becoming a commodity, and obviously, we're competing with markets of varying types of financial pictures. So, it is hard, and yet I think we just have to hold our ground, and know our value. In some cases, like, let's say, like, you get a project that's like, yes, actually billing what I'm worth, like, this is great, et cetera, everything is in check the way it should be. Don't go on vacation for the first couple, you know what I mean? Put that extra in the bank so that you can be a little more discerning when you're waiting for the next project, so that you can say, yeah, I don't know, maybe that one's not right for me. I can hold out, I'll wait.
Well, my favorite thing when I did freelance was, here in New Mexico, rates are pretty low. And I would charge my East Coast rates because that's where I've been working, and they would say to me, "Well, I can get my rate is $75 an hour, let's say at that time. I can get my cousin to do it for $25 an hour," and I go, "Great, my rates are $125 to unscrew whatever your cousin did."
Exactly, that's the plumber gag,
Yeah. And I've actually had two people tell me to screw off, and 2 people who have come back and say, "No, seriously, this thing's a mess." Yes.
Now my mission critical business is offline, and that $125 an hour sounds really good.
Yeah.
No problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something we might want to touch on. Mark's been doing this a long time, and I think that's relevant, right? Where, a lot of the things, one of the things we hear really routinely is like, but this is a remote role, and this is like pre-COVID, but we'll go back to that, no doubt about it. And, those that want people in the office will bring people in the office, and they're already trying to do this now. So for anybody that doesn't think that will be the way it will go, it will. Where we're like, I'm sorry, this doesn't seem safe for me to even recommend to, our people. Why do you want to do, I don't even get into the whys, but the whole idea of it's remote, that should be cheaper, or I'm in New Mexico, and I don't know anything about any of that, to be honest with you. In fact, to tell you the truth, I recommend anybody and everybody who doesn't live in a cheap locale, who's not like, committed to socializing in urban environments, et cetera, do that, right? Because I used to live in Seattle and everything. And I mean, it's another version of New York or San Francisco and so on. And it's like, forget about it. I mean, I could have 2 technologists earning, a few $100,000, $400,000 a year and still live in something I'm not happy with. So, I definitely think part of the value, one of the main values that we can extract as people that learned this craft, that is in demand, and no matter whatever we see in Drupal, people think, oh, maybe it's waning or whatever, and it is, but that doesn't, really actually is not impacting the bread and butter of this world, right? I mean, it's continuing, it's embedded in government, it's embedded in major corporations that cannot shift quickly. So, hours are there and they're here to stay. And I think understanding the rest of your financial picture, if you can reduce, I know I just talked to somebody that moved from Silicon Valley, to North Carolina, and they're like, now I have $6,000 extra a month, so you know what I mean? I think this can really be a benefit and a piece of, a lever that we can all benefit from, working remotely and feeling like, pre-COVID, we still had a space that, when people call me, they're just talking in vagaries that sound like they want people on site, and we're like, okay, I'm thinking you're talking on site now, right? And so I'm just happy to be part of a community that, as somebody that has been working for remotely for 25 years, I'm happy to be part of a community that it's a trend, like a tailwind, as we call them, that, validates that the community is going that way. And obviously, that can definitely greatly impact your bottom line.
That's become a common thing around here. Most of what we
Sure.
see now is California tags in Tennessee.
Yeah.
When I'm out driving around, the most common tag I'll see is a California tag. A lot of people post-COVID moved this way.
Yeah, I'd do the same.
Yeah, the no income tax was a big draw.
It's a nice thing, I gotta tell you.
And the real estate is just crazy in comparison.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We have, migrations from California as well, but I don't know if it's as cheap as Tennessee around here. But anything else comes to mind? Cool. Well, it's been a pleasure, everyone. Glad I could take the time and, illuminate a bit of this freelance world that we're in, some of us. And I would also say the last thing that comes to mind is if you have a full-time job, some of us, be careful of what you take on, right? I was just reflecting with my partner who, Albert is a longtime Drupler, former media current. He does this stuff in his sleep, wizardry of Drupal. And, we'll be like, well, I thought, man, that was going to be done, and I was like, just again, be careful, I think I can take on the world, but then, is what he was telling me. And so I think that is, again, being mature, right, in your business and knowing, math, there's only so many hours in a day. I have family, whatever my particular personal issues are and limitations, like me, I'm getting old. I can no longer put, 10, 12 hours in. It's not possible. Even though in my mind, I don't realize I am that old. I am. And it's true, right? It's gone from 12 to, 7. And that's about all I can do. So, good. I think that's important as far as to kind of keep top of mind, money is nice and all that stuff. And, we get some good intervals where, it looks like the gold rush, we got 4 great projects. It's awesome. Be careful what you take on, be careful what you commit to, right? Without, well, I'll probably get Luke to do that. I mean, I don't know. Right. So, you know what I'm saying? Right. It's possible. But without really, again, going through the steps of quantifying exactly what you're talking about, quantifying what you're getting into, and knowing, you do have somebody that you can rely on truly, right, to deliver that, whatever that is you've promised, then, your reputation is on the line, and that opportunity definitely may not come along again, right? It's one bad apple, right, in this kind of game.
Brad, thanks, Chris.
Along that vein, Chris, what I always do is I take the hours I think it's going to take, and I do time and a half on top of that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's a
it's
PM trick,
instead of
you know.
I'm going to do 30 hours. Well, no, I'm going to tell them it's going to take 45.
Right, right.
Just to give myself a buffer. If I get it done in the 30, great. I'm ahead of schedule.
Well, you know,
And
that's
the
almost another
customers then
thing.
really excited. I got it done sooner than they thought I would.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great point, you know, and that's actually separate than what I was talking about, but excellent. And we should probably just, you know, cap off what the difference is, right? Because that's a great point. Estimating, right? You know, we can almost do a whole talk on estimating itself, right? And I was lucky, right? I got thrust into Accenture, and you know, they didn't have, they were like, yeah, Drupal, this is awesome, we love it, you know. But Chris, could you explain what it is to the rest of the company? Right. So that was my first job when they came to me at first. Right. And then it was like, well, we don't actually have, you know, we've got a lot of, you know, a lot of people are talking to us, but we don't really have work. Right. So inevitably I wound up estimating for like a year, right. Like solid. And that was really cool. Right. It's kind of like Amy June gets paid to contribute. Right. I got paid to estimate and learn from a billion, you know, many billions of dollar company how to estimate. And when I would see what they would produce, because it was all, you know, spreadsheet and, you know, macro and all that, all we'd say is, oh, well, I think building this would be 10 hours, you know, or whatever, 10. Then it would automatically add all that stuff for you, Karen, right? And so at the end, when you finally go look at the spreadsheet, you're like, wait a minute, this Drupal build is going to cost like, you know, $650,000 or something. What the hell are you talking about? Like, you know, I could do this with Luke for like 98, you know, or whatever, you know? And so we would always think that way. And, you know, partially we're dealing with a serious blue chip environment here, but in reality, definitely, you know, when I started to sort of break that all apart, adding that 20, you know, rule of thumb, project management would be 20% on top, definitely, right? Just for management intake back and forth. 30 is good. You know, I think you have that contingency built in. You know, 50, I don't know, you know what I mean? You may be telling them a number they're afraid of, right down at this level, right? You know, our name doesn't say Accenture on the front. So, you know, I mean, I think that's key. Absolutely overestimate. Absolutely tell people that it's going to take longer than you think it's going to take by, you know, 30% or so, 20 to 30%, depending on, you know, really how sure you are, you can over deliver, right? And then of course, just kind of point out, you look good. What I was really saying too, though, even though that's for that wonderful point, was like, worry about how much work you take on, right? Because I can tell you, like, one of the, you know, the good problem we have, right? Good problem you have is our lead source is pretty strong, right? We all are going to experience a pretty fair number of decent leads. And that may entice the more ambitious among us to be like, yes, you know what I mean? Sure, right? That last job I got, I mean, crying out loud, they paid me for 8 hours a day, but I mean, maybe I did like, you know, 3 hours of work, right? But they need me around, right? And this has happened to me, and it's a thing, you know what I mean, that people experience a lot. I wouldn't say a lot, but definitely it happens. And it's genuine. In the end, they needed you. They did need you there, right? That no one else knew anything about Drupal, and this is a major brand or organization. They need somebody, but they don't need 8 hours of your time, right? They need 6 hours of your time. So that could get people to thinking, sure, I'll take on this other thing, or who knows, maybe I'll take this entire job or whatever. So, you know, I would just say, as somebody that, you know, maybe I didn't fall behind on my taxes, but well, I'm sure I have. But I have done that, and you know, it can work out for a while. It can also freak you out and, you know, turn into something that, you know, may not be good. So just be careful with what you take on and how much you grow, once again, without that hard, fast plan in place, as opposed to, yeah, this will be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. You know, don't be too passe with all that. But thanks again for that input. I wanted to make sure we made that clarification. Actually, though, I did. It was where was it? Drupal Camp Nashville. There's which was what, a couple years ago. There was a phenomenal talk on estimating, and they had a spreadsheet in there, and it was just the best thing I'd ever seen on estimating, color coding, and all that stuff. Really something. I think we can still get that talk. So if you guys are getting out into that world and doing a lot of this, you know, some of that legacy content out there is awesome stuff, man.
Okay, great. I know it's dinner time here in
Yeah.
the San Francisco Bay Area. So
Totally.
I'm going to stop the recording.